Joining us now is Red Alert Politics editor Ron Meyer and Washington Examiner politics reporter Gabby Morrongiello. Gabby, to you first. These young people who support Bernie Sanders and turn out by the scores at his rallies, is there any way that Hillary or Donald Trump can woo them, assuming that he's not the nominee?
Well, look, Hillary Clinton could wake up tomorrow and she could promise every prospective college student in this country that they can pursue their education for free. Or she could strike a more anti-interventionist tone in her foreign policy. But it's really unlikely that the young people especially, who are currently supporting Bernie Sanders' candidacy, would suddenly flock to Clinton if she did that, because of what we've seen in the polls. Hillary Clinton, in addition to some of the previous positions she's taken and the actions that she continues to carry out in terms of accepting these six-figure donations from Wall Street, has really hurt herself in terms of her image among millennials. I mean, poll after poll, we see that young people just don't trust her. They don't think that she is the authentic candidate or she has that sincerity that Bernie Sanders does on the campaign trail. So it's difficult to see how her campaign would overcome that optical challenge in a general election. And, you know, the same thing goes for Donald Trump, but for different reasons. Donald Trump has been out there espousing policies and taking positions that alienate a lot of young people. He isn't promising the same type of freebies that Bernie Sanders has. So his campaign is going to have a big uphill battle to climb as well in terms of getting that millennial vote.
Ron, did the young people just not vote then, assuming that Bernie Sanders is hanging on? I mean, he's got his claws on that rung on the ladder as the helicopter's taking off. But do they just not vote in November?
If they don't vote, Donald Trump has a much better chance of winning the election. They really don't like Hillary. I'll just put it that way. When you're talking about polls, in a PPP poll this week, 39% of millennials said they would leave the country, or they would want to leave the country if they could afford it, if Hillary Clinton wins the presidency. And so they really don't like her, and it's for a lot of what Gabby said. She's not authentic. She represents everything that millennials hate about politics. She's an insider. She's close with Wall Street. She panders blatantly to people. She's like the chief panderer. And so if you look at their opinion of Donald Trump, it's not much better, but maybe Trump could change that. But either way, if young people don't like both candidates, they just won't show up. And in a low turnout election for young people, that benefits the Republican generally. And if we look at the statistics, that's what's going to happen. I think Trump has a better chance because of young people just really not caring about this election for their distaste for both major candidates.
Right. Lee Carter, they might hate pandering and they might hate traditional politics, but they also hate math if they're a fan of Bernie Sanders, because there's nothing that, if you look, just do basic math of what his policy proposals entail for the future of the American people, the numbers do not add up. And he's proposing 24 tax hikes on people. So young people might expect rich people to pay for all the goodies and pay for free college education, but it doesn't make any sense.
As Ron said, sorry, but just as Ron said, they would leave the country, you know, if someone will pay for them, because they don't have the money. So, you know, if someone will pay for them to leave, they'll leave.
I mean, he's appealing to their hearts, not to their minds. Right. But the thing that I find so fascinating is talking to voters. There's polls that say as many as a third of Bernie voters will vote for Trump, not for Hillary. And it's when you're talking about, and I've been trying to understand why. It's like, how could you possibly say, I'm going to go from Sanders to Trump? They're totally different policies, totally different everything. What they're saying is, I want something different. I want anti-establishment. I want things to be shaken up. And I don't know. I mean, could millennials come out for Trump? I think there's a chance.
Ron, follow up on that, because you said if Trump could change, but change how? Because, again, that gets to the issue of, if you change too much, if you're a candidate, particularly in this election, then you're not your authentic self, and people don't trust you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, if Donald Trump would, this is what he has to do. He has to mirror some of what Bernie Sanders has done and talk about the problems facing millennials. If you look at what Bernie Sanders does, he talks 90% about the problems and 10% about his solutions, which is just usually free something, okay? But we as conservatives need to talk about that 90%. We need to talk about the problems, that yes, there is wealth inequality, but it's due to big government. Yes, college is expensive, but it's due to big government and easy lending policies from the federal government. We need to talk about what the 21st century economy looks like and how it's going to be hampered by big government. Bernie Sanders' tax policies would kill 6 million jobs during his presidency, and where would most of those jobs be killed? Among young people trying to start their careers. And so Republicans and conservatives need to be out there making these these points, but right now, whether it's Trump or any candidate before him, they aren't talking about this. There is an opportunity there. Young people aren't as partisan as people think. Only 17% identify as socialist. About 19% identify as capitalist. Everybody else is open-minded. Conservatives, Donald Trump, should take their message to the next generation, but they have to learn from Bernie Sanders, use the tactics, and then have better solutions.
Gabby, I saw a recent poll where there were a third of people who identified themselves as socialist, and even a larger number didn't believe in capitalism. It was more than 50%. And Gabby, I don't know how any conservative candidate, how do you push back against that in this election?
Well, you know, when you actually speak to young people who say, I'm a socialist, or I appreciate these socialist policies that Bernie Sanders is espousing, similar to the chairwoman of the Democratic Party, they can't really define what socialism means. So they think they're attracted to socialism. They hear all of these promises that are being made about free college and, you know, taxes on the rich and ending the influence of money in politics, and they say, that sounds great. But when you really talk to them, you talk to them about the importance of individual freedom and responsibility. You remind them of, you know, their iPhone wouldn't be around if not for capitalism and the economy that we operate in currently. If you remind young voters of these things, and this is what a Republican candidate should be doing if they want to win that millennial vote, it resonates a lot more than saying, we're going to pay for your college education, but you're probably going to have to pay higher taxes at some point in the future, or we're going to give everybody in this country free health care, but you're probably going to see your premiums rise because of it. I mean, a Republican candidate needs to be out there reminding voters that some of the policies, the economic policies that President Obama's administration have enacted over the past 6 years have really hurt them. And Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton would likely be a continuation of those policies.
I always say, who makes the best decision about your life and about how your money is best spent? Do you make that decision, or does the government make that decision? That should be somebody's slogan, who I don't know. Ron, thank you so much.
Right.
Ron Meyer, good to see you. Gabby Morrongiello. Take care. Come back soon.